Hi, I'm Miss Roz. Today we are going to make Alfredo sauce. You can either use linguine, fettuccine. I actually am going to be using rotini today because I don't have any of the linguine or the fettuccine. All right, first thing you want to do is boil your water. Right, you want to make sure that it is on high. Right? And then what you also want to make sure is that it is a rapid boil. Right, rapid boil means that the water is moving a lot. There's a lot of bubbles. Right. So if you see little bubbles coming up, that doesn't mean it's quite there, right? Your boil should look like this, right? I should see lots of water moving around, right? So for this recipe, you need about 8 ounces of some pasta. So that's about a half a pound of pasta. So I'm gonna throw this into my water, right? When you're boiling water, right, you can put a lid on the water and it will help to boil the water a little quicker. Or you could, but once you put the pasta in, so now that my pasta is in here, right, you want to make sure that you don't leave a lid on or it's going to, it will kind of boil over, right? Once you put it in there, you also want to mix it up just so that it doesn't stick to the bottom. The thought of having salt in there, you would need to have a lot of salt in there in order to change the boiling point of water, right? So typically when you put water in the water, it's mainly for flavor, okay? And so then now we're going to start on making the Alfredo sauce, right? So things that you need for this Alfredo sauce, you need 2 tablespoons of some flour, right? 2 tablespoons of some butter. All right, I have a half teaspoon of some salt and then a little pepper mixed in there, maybe just like a pinch or so. I need about a cup of some milk, and then I have a half a cup of some Parmesan cheese. All right. So we first are going to make a roux. All right. So the roux is butter and flour mixed together. Right. So in here, all right, I'm gonna toss in that 2 tablespoons of butter and let that melt. Right. Typically when I make this, I like to use a whisk so that I can whisk the sauce. Right. We're also using this on medium to medium-high heat. Right. You don't want to use high heat or you will burn your sauce and then everything is going to taste a little burnt. Okay. So mix around your pasta every once in a while as well. Once this butter starts to melt, you can then start adding in your flour. Right, your flour is, so like I said, flour plus butter is what we call a roux. So R-O-U-X. Right, and this typically is the base for most milk-based soups and sauces. Right. All right. So as that starts to melt down, right, I'm gonna add in my flour there, right. So this is my thickening agent, right. This is what's gonna help make that sauce nice and thick. You want to make sure that you make this nice and creamy and smooth, right? Because this is the base of your sauce. So if the base of your sauce starts out lumpy, the rest of your sauce is probably going to be lumpy, right? So make sure that you really whisk this to make it nice and smooth, and you dissolve all that flour into the butter, right? And then I'm gonna just put in nice salt and pepper and mix that around, right? And then I'm gonna add my milk. Now my milk, when I add this, now becomes what we call a bechamel sauce. And this is actually one of the mother sauces. So what that means is that just about, mother sauces mean like this is the base of how to start a sauce, right? So like I said, this, right, this is the start of a lot of different sauces and soups. Right, you'll notice I only added a little at a time, right? I don't want to add all of it because it will end up clumpy, right? So what I want to do is I want to mix this, right, until it starts to absorb. It's going to start to kind of look like mashed potatoes, right? and then I'm going to add a little more milk. All right, so notice I'm adding like maybe 1/4 of a cup or so at a time as I make this. All right, and then mix it up. All right, now making this sauce does take a little time. It's not going to happen overnight, but if you make sure that your sauce is nice and smooth before you add the next set of milk, it'll make it look very nice. Okay. Right. All right, so keep on mixing this. Like I said, make sure it's nice and smooth before you add the next round of milk. All right. And obviously, as you add more and more milk, it's going to get a lot more liquidy. Right, so once we get all that milk in, it will take a couple of minutes for it to start thickening up again. Right, and once that starts to thicken up, that's when you will want to add the cheese. Right, so let's give this a couple of minutes to thicken. Right. As I'm waiting for that to thicken, you want to make sure that you mix it you're continuously mixing, but I am going to check my pasta real quick, right? Make sure check my rotini, right? It is not quite there, but I do want it to be what we call al dente, or to the bite, or to the tooth. That sounds like dentist. So you want to, that means that it's not super soft, but it's not super hard. It has just like a little bite to it. I like to make any pastas that I'm planning to cook into a sauce, such as this, a little al dente, because it will continue to cook when you, even though you take it out of the hot water. Right? So if it's too overcooked in the pan, it's definitely going to be overcooked when you mix it into your sauce. Okay. All right. Also, you want to make sure that you have a colander in your sink. Right. One of the things about the colander is that it is a one-person task. Right. Draining your pasta. Right. So if you come over here, here's my colander. Right. It is very common. I shouldn't say common, but every year I always see somebody, particularly when we're actually in the kitchens at school, one person holds the colander while the other person pours the hot boiling water into it. It seems kind of dangerous, and it seems, common sense, but just want to talk about the safety of using a colander. So take your colander and just put it into the sink, and then one person can take the pot and pour it over and dump out the contents. All right, so here we go. So this is starting to thicken up. Right, so what I'm actually going to do is turn the heat off because I don't want it too thick. All right, and then I'm going to pour in my cheese. All right, and it is hot enough that cheese will melt beautifully into the Alfredo sauce. Okay, perfect. All right, so my Alfredo sauce is nice and ready for my pasta. All right, so I'm just going to check on the pasta and see how it is. All right, so like I said, you don't want it to be overly done. All right, so just eat a piece to check the texture. It's perfect, so it has just a little bite to it, but it is soft. So I'm going to take this and come on over here to the sink. Right, 2 hands poured in to my colander. All right, and let it drain all that water out. Okay, because you don't want the pasta to be wet. All right, once it's all drained, right, you can then add your pasta into your sauce. All right, and then toss this about. So, like I said, you could use fettuccine, linguine, whatever you prefer. Okay, and then so that is right there, Alfredo sauce. Okay. Right. If you have any questions, definitely ask during class. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy, and I will see you again soon. Thank you.